begin step 11, as we say, step 11 is one of the great pillars of the steps of our program. But before we get to, each week we do a review and get into the specific step that we're going to talk about. And we begin at the first step in talking about what is the problem. And we say this is the foundation of recovery, and this is the greatest information that I've had as an alcoholic, is to be able to understand the exact nature of my problem. For many years I had a problem and I didn't understand it. As I realize today that AA is about the only place where we can find out, really what our problem is. I tried many solutions, but I didn't understand my problem. When I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, they show me the exact nature of my problem. And they said it is twofold. I had a physical problem, a physical allergy to alcohol. And I learned that, the word allergy is an abnormal reaction. Something occurred in me that doesn't occur in the average temperate drinker. And that's the only thing, an allergy is what is abnormal, that I was an abnormal drinker. And I didn't never understand that I was an abnormal drinker because I was abnormal all my life. And abnormal was really normal for me. And whenever I took a drink, something occurred in me. And from the very first drink, I remember, every time I took a drink, I had a desire or a physical craving for another drink. And when I would, and the more I drank, since it was caused by alcohol, the more I drank, the more I craved. I wanted to drink harder after 10 drinks than I did after one. And a phenomenal craving build and build and build, and every time I take a drink, it would go on and on and on, and I got in a lot of trouble. My life was unmanageable. So, this was a problem, and this was just half of my problem. And quite naturally, if you're allergic to something, the answer is the same. Dr. Silkworth says, if we'll never put alcohol in our system, we will never experience the craving of alcohol. And it's easy. If you don't take the first drink, you'll be all right. That's simple. That's too simple for an alcoholic. I thought it was the 5th drink or the 10th drink, but it was the first drink. See me? But later on, our book says that this is academic in a way. It is very important to know, but this is academic if we didn't take the first drink anyway. Our book also says, therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind, mental, rather than his body. This is a big part of the problem. And we now will be able to safely drink alcohol. But the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. Why do we take that first drink? And our book says we have an obsession. And we learn that obsession is an idea that overcomes all other ideas. And when the book says we become restless, irritable, and discontent, and we become a lot of other things. We really work at this. We get bored, and we get lonely, and we get uptight. And when these things become painful, then we will remember the sense and ease and comfort that comes at once for taking a few drinks of alcohol. We remember the ease and comfort of alcohol. Boy, do I remember in my mind the longing for the sense and ease and comfort that I knew would come into my life at once if I took a few drinks of alcohol. Every alcoholic knows that. You know what I mean? Those normal people don't know about it. That's why they say, why did you take a drink? I thought you quit. See, but they don't know about that sense and ease and comfort that we get. And if they did, they would be reaching for a few too. But we get something that they don't get, and they don't need. Maybe, we don't know. But the longing for that sense and ease and comfort in the mind makes us reach out and pick up a few drinks of alcohol, put it into our system. And as soon as the alcohol hits the system, it becomes a physical allergy. the physical allergy is triggered, and we go through the well-known spree, as the doctor said. We're emerging with a firm resolution not to drink again, and he said this is repeated over and over again, over and over and over and over and over for about 16 years of my life. Always going to quit. Merry-go-round gets smaller, smaller, smaller. The doctor says that unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, he leaves the body and goes to the mind. There is little hope for his recovery. Yeah. And the second step shows us the solution. It says, come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. And it's quite obvious. And we really get the second step off of the first step. By looking at this information, we can develop the second step. Since we don't know anything, medical science or no one else can treat the allergy. Dr. Silkworth says maybe one day they will. But at this point today, we don't really know that. We don't know anything about it, so we can't do anything about the body. So the solution must lie within the mind. And since the physical allergy is not the main problem anyway, the solution would be over here in the mind. This is the main problem. And since we're powerless, the solution is power. Restore us to sanity. It talks about power working in the mind. If this power could remove this obsession, then we could live with the allergy to alcohol, because we would never take the first drink. So the second step talks about a solution to the problem. And then if that's the case, if we know that the solution is power and that the problem is powerless, then the next thing is then the main purpose of the book is starting from 3 to 12 is how to find that power. We have a planned program of finding that power. A little step-by-step program in which it says that it's guaranteed that everyone who has taken this, who has followed this plan, never have seen anybody fail that has followed this plan, that the only thing that a 12-step promises this is a spiritual awakening. These steps will awaken us. Therefore, finding this power which will overcome the powerlessness. These steps are designed to do that. So we're in step 3, and quite naturally it's based on 1 and 2. If you have 1 and have 2, then you have a decision. Decision means to cut facts in two. And there are only 2 facts in the alcoholic's life. Of course, before I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had many things I wanted to do. I could say, well, I can get my wife back, I'll be all right, I can move to California. I had a lot of decisions to make. An alcoholic is, decisions kill alcoholic. I heard a guy tell a story about this guy, one of my favorite stories, about the guy who had a job working out in the field digging potatoes. And it was a back-breaking job. And he would, how you just couldn't hardly stand up after them potatoes all day. But the guy was good, and the boss watched him, and he saw that this guy was a real good worker. He didn't goof off, he worked. And so finally, one day they came into the shed, and they asked him, they said, you're a good worker. I'd like to keep you around. So I'm going to take you out of the fields, and I'm going to put you in a potato house. And you won't have to pick up any potatoes no more. All you got to do is sit on this stew, and as the potatoes come by, put the big ones over here, the little ones over here, and the rotten ones over here. And he said, that's good. So this guy worked there. He didn't work for about an hour. He called the boss back. He said, look, I would like to have my job back in the field. The guy said, well, you mean you don't like this job in here, sitting down, sorting the potatoes, better than being out there in the field? He said, I'd rather be out there in the field because these decisions is killing me. And that's sort of the way it is with an alcoholic, These big decisions. We have some alcoholic has a big decision, and honestly, he has never seen the truth. Once he sees the truth in the first step, he don't have that many decisions. He don't have but two alternatives in his life. So he doesn't have to go to California. That ain't even one of his decisions. He has two alternatives. He can continue as he is, step one, insanity or death, or life on a spiritual basis. Those are the only two alternatives that a real alcoholic has. And once we make that decision in step three, then we have to go to work to carry out this decision in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are the action steps that carry out the decision. Step three is but a decision. It says it would have no permanent effect. So we go to work in step four to remove the things that block us off from this power. And it talks about, we went through and we inventoried resentments, fears. We inventoried our sex conduct of the past and the people we had harmed. Then in step five, we talked about this to another individual and got to the exact nature of the problem. Step 6, we became willing to let go. And step 7, we asked God to remove it. And then step 8 and 9, we went out and repaired the damage done in the past. You know, the harm that we have done to others. And these things are, the guilt and all this stuff is in our minds. And once these things are gotten out of the way, then after step 9, we have the promises of the book. You know, we will know a new freedom. It talks about a personality change sufficient to recover. It takes place gradually, as we can see, as we take these steps. You know, as an alcoholic, you know, I could stop drinking. Any alcoholic can stop drinking. In fact, I could tie you to one of those trees out there and you stop drinking real quick. Or if you want to stop drinking, go out there and slap one of them policemen. You'll stop real quick, you know. But, you know, that's no big deal. But you know, just to stop drinking, but I couldn't change my life. I was still the same person. I still had the same thing going on. And these steps bring up, we have already stopped drinking, but these steps bring about a gradual personality change as we take these steps, sufficient to recover from alcoholism. And after we have worked on self and worked on our minds in 4, 5, 6, and 7, worked on our spiritual life in step 3, worked on our relationship with God in steps 8 and 9, then we have the promises of the book, because the personality change is sufficient. It's beginning to take place after step 9, even though we're just halfway through at this point. And once we have these promises, then in step 10, we continue to work on our personality. We continue each day, as we talked about last week, on a day-to-day basis, watching for self. We watch for resentments, we watch for fears, and when these things crop up, you know, we ask God to remove them. We discuss them with someone else immediately, and we make amends if we have harmed anyone. And through working step 10 on a continuous basis, we continue to work on our personality, continue to having a change. And I think the exciting thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, we can constantly change and change for the rest of our lives. And we can grow based on what we're willing to do. And then after we have done that for a while, for a period of time, with step 10, now we have done a lot of work. Step 3 was a decision. Steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 were action steps. And really, step 10 was just a continuation of the process of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And as we practice this over, we refine the personality and we grow. Now, after we have grown to a point, then this brings us to step 11. And step 11 is really one of the pillars of the steps. As we said, you know, as we take the steps 1 and 2, brings us to 3. And then the steps kind of, you know, it talks about the bridge, and I like to look at this as a bridge. And the real pillars of this thing is, to me, is 3 and 11. 3 is a decision based on 1 and 2 to turn over our will. Clear away the things that block us from decision And in step 11, we receive God's will. So the simplicity is these two things. The changing of directions. Changing our lives is based on changing directions. You know, you can't use the same directions and go to a different place. That's obvious. If you want to go to a different place with your life, that's what we share here at the birthday, we have to change directions. So tonight, if we have worked these steps, made this decision, took these actions, now we should be able to receive God's directions in our lives. And step 11 is a tool, you know, to do this, to receive God's directions. It says through prayer and meditation. And simply, prayer and meditation is simply the ability to listen and to talk and to listen to God, who is within us, by the way. We talked about that. Remember we said earlier, God is within man. You know, this is nothing new to any of us that's been there all our lives. All of us have a conscience. All of us have, some of us may call this a soul, some of us may call this an inner intelligence or guidance or whatever we choose to call it. But we all know, you know, we didn't have to read no great books to find right from wrong. I've always had a sense of directions within my life. Either before I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, it was there. Now that I know what it is. You know, they say God is within man. And I've always known right from wrong. You know, I've never told a lie that I didn't know I was lying. I really did. I always. You know, you don't lie by accident. You know, I've always known, I've always known what was right. But being an alcoholic, you know, I'm a selfish, self-centered person. Been all my life. Right and wrong was never my problem. You know, I always knew right from wrong. But an alcoholic, he has three things. If it was right and wrong, we'd be saints. But an alcoholic has right and wrong and what I want to do. And what I want to do seems to always win. See what I mean? But if I could get rid of self, if I could get rid of what I wanted to do, then right and wrong, I could handle. But I could never handle that. See what I mean? Because what I wanted to do damn near killed me. But I always knew right and wrong. But it was a biggie up there, what I wanted to do. And that is self. So tonight, as we talk about this, it says prayer and meditation. And I've never known, and I'll talk about that, I've never known an alcoholic that wasn't good at prayer. Prayer kind of goes along with a good alcoholic. You know, if you're an alcoholic like I was, you do a lot of praying. You know, because we get in a lot of situations, you know. I use prayer as an emergency situation, mostly like medicine. I took it when I was sick. But this talk, in this book tonight and in the 11th step, it gives us this tool to use to fashion a life of prayer and meditation. You know, after all, as we have made this decision and got rid of self-will, then there's only two wills on the face of this earth. You know, the will of God and the will of man. And the only way, you know, in our life, in the human life, God gave this thing self-will. He gave it to man. And only we can make the decision to get rid of it. And as we clear away the things that block us off, we find that God's will is already within us. My book said it's been there. It's been covered up by calamity, pomp, and worship of other things. And now through step 11, it's to awaken this thing. And it's not an overnight matter. You know, it takes practice. It takes daily work at prayer and meditation, you know, to really make it strong enough and vital in the human life. And only we can do this. We get what we work for.